Hello friends, welcome again. Friends, in one of my previous videos, I discussed the literary characteristics of the Elizabethan age. We also discussed the history of English literature beginning from the Middle Ages till the 16th century. And friends, in this video, today we want to discuss the important characteristics of English literature as which was produced during the Restoration Age. Friends, this Restoration Age, first let's try to understand why it is called the Restoration period. It is called the Restoration Age because King Charles II was restored on the throne of England. The period from 1660 to 1700, this period of 40 years is named as the Age of Restoration. It is also known as the Age of John Dryden. Why John Dryden? Because John Dryden was the most influential literary personality during these 40 years in the history of English literature. In 1660, King Charles II was brought back to the throne, and Cromwell was the previous king. Who was the previous king? He was very strict to the people, and people did not want him to continue as the king in England, and that's why a new king, King Charles II came to the throne, and that was very welcomed by the people of England. Okay, the nation welcomed this restoration of Charles II. This restoration brought about some revolutionary changes in both the social life and the literary life of the people. So friends, I hope the idea is clear that it is called the Restoration. Why? Because King Charles II was restored, restored during this period. That's why it is known as the Age of Restoration. Now this new king, King Charles II, was a very corrupt man, was a highly corrupt man. He had so many mistresses in his court. He was always surrounded by the corrupt courtiers, and corruption was rampant in all walks of life. जैसे हमारे हिंदी में एक कहावत है कि जैसे राजा वैसी प्रजा. Because the king was corrupt and because the king was surrounded by the corrupt people, that's why corruption was prevalent, very much in all walks of life in England. And this influenced the life of the people, and that is very much reflected in the literature which was written during this period. Religious and political quarrels were found. If you examine the social history of England, you find that different religious parties were quarreling among themselves, political parties were quarreling among themselves, and these quarrels, religious quarrels, political quarrels, are reflected in literature which was produced during this period. Why? Because literature is always the reflection of life and society. During this period, during this restoration period, we see the rise of two important political parties, and these two political parties were the Whigs and the Tories. The Whigs were in opposition to the king, and Tories were supporting the king. These two political parties, were having conflicts among themselves, and this conflict is presented in literature also. Not only this, religious quarrels were also found between the Protestants and the Catholics. Okay, the religious controversy was going on, and most of the people, the whole nation was dominated by the Protestants, and the Catholics were punished by the king in those times. John Dryden has written Absalom and Achitophel, and this work of art reflects these religious and political conflicts of those times. Right. Coffee houses also played an important role to bring about a change in the literature produced during those times. The clubs and the coffee houses were newly established during this period, and these clubs and coffee houses, they became the center of political discussions, and from here only the periodical essays came into existence. जैसे हम चाय पे चर्चा करते हैं, जैसे चाय की दुकान पे लोग बातें करते हैं, तो कौन सी बातें करते हैं? हम पॉलिटिक्स की बातें करते हैं, करंट अफेयर्स की बातें करते हैं। तो ये जो फैशन थी इंग्लैंड में 17वीं सदी में, ये रेस्टोरेशन पीरियड में शुरुआत हुई थी कॉफ़ी हाउसेस की, जहाँ से द डिस्कशन अबाउट पॉलिटिक्स, द डिस्कशन अबाउट रिलीजन, दैट स्टार्टेड एंड दैट gave birth to periodical essays which became popular during the 18th century. Neoclassicism is an important characteristic of the Restoration literature. This restoration marks a complete break with the past and the Elizabethan Romanticism. See friends, if you want to understand this literature produced during this Restoration age, then you need to understand the element of Romanticism which was found in the literature produced during the Elizabethan age, because both are in contrast. आपको अगर प्रकाश समझना है तो अंधकार को समझना पड़ेगा. It is just like that. Romanticism is just in opposition to classicism. So new classicism began during this period, which was opposed to the popular romanticism of the Elizabethan literature. Edward Albert, a historian of English literature, he writes, I quote, "The post-restoration period is often set up as coverage and antithesis of the previous Elizabethan age. It is called classical as opposed to the Elizabethan romanticism." So we understand from this sentence, from this statement by Edward Albert, that Restoration literature was an antithesis to the Elizabethan literature. Elizabethan literature stands for romanticism. On the other hand, Restoration literature stands for classicism. The new writers, they did not have any faith in the Elizabethan writers. Okay, so they revolted against those Elizabethan style and custom of writing literature. They turned to the great classical writers, particularly they followed the ancient Latin writers for guidance and inspiration. The writers, the poets of the Restoration age, they got their inspiration from the ancient classical writers, and that is why these writers are known as neoclassical writers. Not only this, imitation of the ancients is also considered as an important characteristic of the Restoration literature. The authors of this time, they turned to the ancient writers for their guidance and inspiration. They directed their attention to the slavish imitation of rules and regulations, and they ignored the importance of the subject matter. If you have watched one of my videos on John Dryden as a critique, John Dryden has written the essay of dramatic poetry. In that essay, in that discussion, in that video, I have presented this idea that John Dryden was the first critic who goes against those writers who tried to imitate the ancients and the French writers, right? So, in those times, during the period of John Dryden, most of the writers, they followed the ancients. They believed that ancient art of writing drama is greater than our English art of writing drama. They believed that the French writers are more artistic, they have more artistic perfection in their poetry and drama than the English poetry and drama. But this habit is noticeable in the age of John Dryden, and that was even strengthened more in the age of Pope after John Dryden's age. And that's why Alexander Pope himself has written these lines: earn hands for ancient rules a just esteem, to copy nature is to copy them. So ancient rules were mostly followed by the Restoration writers. Realism is another important characteristic of the Restoration literature. Restoration literature was by and large realistic by nature. It was concerned with the life and with the fashion and the manners of the people. W.J. Long, another historian of English literature, has remarked, I quote, the early Restoration writers sought to paint realistic pictures of corrupt court and society. So, W.J. Long wants to say that the Restoration writers, they have presented the realistic picture of corruption which was prevalent in both the court and the society, and emphasized vices rather than virtues. Here, if you read the literature of the Restoration period, the vices of the society are presented, are exposed in literature, okay, and gave us coarse, low place without interest or moral significance. You do not find much moralism in the literature produced during this time. Here, poetry and drama was already written during 16th century, but here you find a new phase of poetry and drama. What kind of new phase that we are discussing now? Number one, satire was an important element of both poetry and drama which was written during this period. Restoration age was an age of political unrest, sharp wit and personal contention. So this political battle is very much reflected satirically in literature produced during this time. Satire becomes the core element of literature. John Dryden himself has written Macflecknoe, which is written in heroic couplet. It is considered as one of the most important satires of this age. Moreover, the kind of poetry that was written is a revolt against romanticism. As just now I told you, if you compare the Restoration literature with the Elizabethan literature, both are in opposition. Okay, Elizabethan age is the age of romanticism, and Restoration age is the age of classicism. So the poetry produced during this period was a revolt against romanticism. Another important thing to note about this period is the kind of drama. The theatres which were closed in 1642 were now reopened during the Restoration period. See, before 1660, the theatres were banned by the Puritans. Okay, theatres were closed by the Puritans. But now, after the rule of King Charles II, during the rule of King Charles II, these theatres were reopened, and as a result, the plays were written for the playhouses for these theatres. So drama became very popular during this age. It gave rise to the development of comedy of manners. New kind of play was produced during this period, which were known as comedy of manners, which portrayed the sophisticated life of the dominant class of the society. This comedy of manners mainly depicted the vices of the aristocratic people. Okay, there was no moralism in the comedy of manners which were produced during this period. Another important characteristic of the Restoration period, Restoration literature, is the use of heroic couplet. Restoration literature adopted the heroic couplet as the befitting medium to write poetry. It has, now what is a heroic couplet? Heroic couplet means it is made of two lines, and both these lines are iambic pentameter lines, and they are rhyming with each other. Waller, who began to use this heroic couplet in 1623, is considered as the father of heroic couplet. But later on, Waller and John Dryden and many more other writers also used this heroic couplet as the most important medium to present their ideas during Restoration age. So friends, let's now conclude the whole discussion by saying that Restoration period was a kind of a transitory period from Romanticism to Neoclassicism. Realism, in an important characteristic of the Restoration literature, is found in most of the writers' works. Okay, mostly the vices, the evils of the society, corruption is mostly exposed in the literature. Depiction of flower girls. Flower girls means the ladies, the married ladies who are having some love affairs, extramarital affairs with other men. You know, these ladies from aristocratic class are presented in the literature of this time. Classicism and imitation of the ancients, imitation of the French writers, Latin writers, this is also found during this period. And political and religious quarrels, the battles, they were satirically presented in the literature of this time. So friends, here we end up this lecture. If you have any doubts or questions, please do write to me in the comment section of this channel. Friends, if you really like this video, please share and subscribe this channel. Thank you very much.